It's been quite a weekend, you know. Of course, dealing with my dad. My dad continues to go downhill. My dad is in rehab right now and dealing with that. And I was working on the Bluesmobile, and it decided not to work, and so I drove Thunder the Wonder Pig, which is my white car, and I'm at a stoplight last night, and I kept smelling gasoline. I thought, wow, the car in front of me must be leaking gas real bad. I got here to church, and I still smelled gas, and I'd driven through a big puddle, and it was at night, and I got my flashlight, and I'm smoking, laying up under my car looking. Man, I'll have to wait until all this water runs off. And finally I put my hand in, that's gas running out. So I had to abandon my car here last night. And then, of course, Amy today, I have no idea what's going on with Amy. So it's been an exciting weekend so far. I'm sorry? Not anything, no. No, I'm one of the few people left in the United States that does not have a cell phone. Yeah, I'm the last of the Mohicans. I might maybe actually buy one that works. I bought one not long ago, about a year ago, but I have no idea where it's at. And I don't know the numbers, so I can't call it. So, you know, maybe when I finally clean something out, hey, there's my cell phone. Cool. What are we talking about? We're talking about what? The mission of the church. Do you remember our topic last week? Don't you love the smell of these things? Okay, tradition. Tradition. Da, 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 da. Give me a tradition of the church. You know what Gary told me today after church? I'm going to keep harping on this. People are going to get tired of this. Somebody's going to come up and say, shut thy mouth. Until that happens, I'm not going to do it. Did anybody hear that part of the sermon, or were you already gone? That Gary labors alone. Our entire evangelism committee is made up of Gary Ellis. And we are diligently looking. Now, Gary has been extremely faithful. In fact, he is the picture of fidelity when it comes to something, you know, like evangelism. And a preacher got in the pulpit and held forth loud and clear, help Gary Ellis. And you know how many people came after church and embraced Gary and said, Gary, we're praying for you. We're lifting you up to God. Here's a word of encouragement. What can I do? We had a total of zero. Yeah, zero. Here, I'm even going to write it up here. Zero. Zero. What I'm going to start doing, you know what a zero bar is? A zero candy bar? I'm going to eat a zero candy bar every day until somebody volunteers to help Gary out. So unless you want to see this get bigger, you better help Gary, okay? All righty. Tradition. Why is, how can I say this? Why is that typical? Why is that traditionally typical? It's comfortable, okay? Very good. The comfort zone. Comfort zone. And inevitably, the way we have been raised and what we have been taught, it's almost a duality in our Christian faith. You know, I can go to any gathering of any Christian body across any denominational lines, Lutheran, Catholic, Presbyterian, Baptist, Episcopalian, Anglican, down the line. Do we need to spread the word of Jesus Christ? Yes. I'll get a rousing yes. Yes, we do. Do people go to hell if they don't know Jesus Christ? Yes, they do. We need to reach out with the gospel. Okay, who wants to help me out? Zero. Because on the one hand, we firmly and fervently believe the gospel of Christ, that is the only way to paradise, and yet we were also taught to be polite, to be mannerly, and to mind our own business. And part of the problem here is tradition says that a jihad. Religion is private. True or false? Okay, yes and no. Yes and no. Explain. Okay, all right. It is. Say that again now. Okay. So I can count on you to help Gary sometime this week, because bingo! All right, that's it. That nails it right then. When I go to God in prayer, it's one reason we do our tithes, our pledge cards the way we do. Because I quite frankly, it's not that I don't care. That's not the right way to say it. It's not even that I'm uninterested, but quite frankly, I'll put it this way. It's none of my business what you put in your pledge envelope. I don't want to know. I don't want to know. That's between you and God. Now, I will never ever, and I've said this for years, I will never preach a money sermon. But I will preach a sermon about tithing, because tithing is biblical. And inevitably, you go to the stewardship committee and you sit down with the stewardship committee, and what do they say? Don't use the word tithe, because what will happen? People will get offended, because what have you just done? You've put a definite figure on what you can give or what you should give, and giving is motivated from what? It should be. 1 Corinthians says what? God loves a hilarious giver. Okay, that's the literal translation. I sure did. Thank you, Bob, for remembering. Thank you, Bob. That means I can't bring that one out and use it again. Maybe I could. 10%. 10% before taxes. Ooh, that hurts. Because if you do it after taxes, who becomes your God? The government, right? Because the government comes first and God comes second. No, the government comes what? Second, God comes first, right? Now, this isn't where we wanted to go, but I don't want anybody walking away confused. If you run your own business and have expenses, say for example, you are self-employed and you have a business and you make $100,000 a year. Wow, cool. Tithing says you ought to give $10,000 a year to the church, but what if, in order to run that business, your business expenses are $70,000 a year before taxes? That means you make a profit of $30,000, so your tithe would be $3,000, correct? Yeah, that makes it a little more approachable, a little more doable, right? However, if you have a business and you make $100,000 a year because you're a consultant, or you're an engineer or a doctor, and you really have no overhead other than what's in your mind, okay, then your tithe is $10,000. You follow what I'm saying? Before taxes, now, I'm not going to beg the people for money. That's not my job. It's not my role as pastor. Quite frankly, if you put $1 in the offering envelope and you feel good about that, that's between you and God. If you put $10,000 in the offering envelope, our treasurer will thank you. Yeah, we'll look you up and give you a bouquet of flowers and a box of candy too. Yeah, you bet. But I don't want to know who gives what. I really don't. And I'll tell you why. I made the big mistake one time at my former congregation up in the great state of Alabama. Our treasurer got sick, and they called me up, and we had a real secure way of handling our money. Here we have 2 vaults and a special room dedicated to finance, and there's 50,000 keys you have to have, and the password, and cross the bridge over the chasm where the monsters are trying to. We guard the money well here. At my former congregation, we stuck it behind a bookshelf in one of the Sunday school rooms, because nobody ever looked back there. And then Monday morning, maybe they would pick it up and take it to the bank. And our treasurer got sick, and she called me up, "Pastor, can you come get the money?" And it's still in the offering plate sitting on the altar. And it's like, sure, I'll take care of it. And what big mistake did I make? We didn't use envelopes because we were saving money. And so we didn't order envelopes. You just put your check or your money in the plate. And so I'm gathering all these checks out, and I start doing what? Wow. Well, wait, what do you mean $10? You just bought a brand new car. What do you mean 550? You just put a pool in your backyard. And I get in the pulpit on Sunday and I'm so tempted to say what? So-and-so, you need to increase your tithe, right? It's like, okay, I'm not going to do that anymore. Your pledge is private. That is a private encounter with God. Likewise, our prayers. Think of some of the prayers we pray. A lot of the prayers we pray are pretty basic. Give me a good day, God. Bless me. Keep me safe. Keep food on my table and a roof over my head. Some of those are just pretty general prayers, and none of us would be ashamed to pray those prayers. I got a story for you. I got the biggest kick out of this, talking about prayer and prayer in public. This past week, I had a meeting with my circuit counselor, Pastor David Brockhoff. He's meeting with all the pastors of all the churches in our circuit, and Wednesday was my turn. And he sends me an email. Where do you want to go to lunch? And I said, you know what? I want to go to Hooters. Why do I want to go to Hooters? Because they have a thing outside where you can sit and smoke and eat at the same time. Yeah, find me another restaurant like that. And he sends, okay, great, see you at Hooters, 11:45 Wednesday morning. Head over there, I get my little spot on the porch, and I don't remember the girl's name, but she came out in the Hooters costume. All right. And I'm dressed in regular clothes. I don't have my collar on. I just got like a, shirt and pants and shoes. Got my hat on. And I tell her, I say, I'm waiting for a friend of mine. I'll have a cup of coffee. Had coffee. And it was cold. The weather, not the coffee. Anyway, and Pastor Brockhoff, he shows up. And she keeps coming out. Oh, can I bring you some hors d'oeuvres? No, thank you. Appetizers? No, thank you. You want a beer? No, thank you. And she's dressed in the typical Hooters outfit, right? And then Pastor Brockhoff comes up and we chat a little bit. We order our food. She brings our food. And right before we eat, we do what? We pray. And right after she brought the food, she says, can I fill your drinks? And I said, yeah, I would like another hot cup of coffee, please. Okay, I'll be right back. You think I pray a long time. Pastor Brockhoff prayed and prayed and prayed and prayed, and he prayed from the book of Genesis to the end of Revelations, right? Because, would you honor us by saying the prayer? Oh, I'd be proud to, and da-da-da-da-da-da. And I look up, finally when he says amen, I look up, there's my hot cup of coffee. Okay, she brought the coffee while we were praying. Cool. She got to see us praying. When she came back out, she had on a coat, zipped all the way up to her chin. Can I get you guys anything else? Aha. The prayer had power in what? Yeah. Guilt, exactly. Guilt. I didn't want to throw that at our circuit counselor. When you pray, go into a closet and pray. Some prayers are very private. Maybe we're dealing with a particular sin in our life that we don't want to share. Maybe we have personal issues that we bring before God in prayer. And that's private. It's a private thing. But the problem is, here, get this off the board, is when we take private religion and use that as a template for public works. Because we do what? Jesus says what? He looks at the Pharisees and he says, what about the Pharisees? When you pray, do not be like the Pharisees who tie broad phylacteries on their head. Okay, so that they may be what? Seen by men. All right? Truly they have their reward. Now note this. Jesus does not say God does not answer that person's prayer. But if they pray for self-glory, what do they receive? Self-glory. Wow, boy, he sure can pray well. Do you see how religious he is? That's a true man of God. And people do what? They feed that pride. Likewise, good works. That Jesus says what? Do your good works in secret and God will reward you openly. See how it works? That if I walk around and say, well, I just gave $100,000 to such and such charity. Look at me, aren't I generous? And everybody, wow, boy, he sure is generous. I wish I could do that. Does God answer my prayer? Yeah, he gives me exactly what I want, the praise of men. The praise of men, which is what? Worthless. Exactly. God says, okay, if that's all you want, that's all you get. Bingo, there it is. Tradition. The problem is, though, we bind ourselves, we limit ourselves, or we box ourselves in. Let's see, boxed. I'll just put boxed in. Remember what we were talking about last week in terms of evangelism and outreach? The Old Testament model is our model for evangelism. We set up shop and we want everybody to come here. Nobody in the New Testament did that. Nobody. Find me one individual in the New Testament that set up shop and everybody came to him. Thomas went to India. Paul went to Rome. Jesus went everywhere. Paul took 4 missionary journeys. I mean, we can go all the way down the line. And yet, when we do evangelism, we build, we buy, we build, we beautify. I'm going to remember that. That's the 3 B's of evangelism. Buy, build, beautify. And then we do what? That's what blows the bees. We wait. We wait. Yes, ma'am. You have to start with the young people. Because for the very reason Roy mentioned, let me just use this for now, because we've got a speaker that's going to take 20 minutes of our time today and share a few things with us. Roy hit the nail on the head. It's out of our comfort zone. Now I'm a pastor, right? And it's my job, people see my job as what? Talking about Jesus. Wherever I go, whatever I do, I'm supposed to talk about Jesus, which I'm fine with. I like to do that. I enjoy that. I might not be very eloquent or very intelligent, but I can talk all about Jesus, And I'm not saying that pridefully, but I've done it so long, I'm comfortable with it, Like chemistry. I don't know nothing about chemistry. The only thing I remember about chemistry is we did an experiment in chemistry class one time, and me and my lab partner made something that would dissolve zinc. And we don't even know how we made it. It was our first day in lab class, and we were sitting there and, curious and goofy, and we're both teenagers, and we had a beaker, and there were all these bottles of stuff. And we kept pouring the stuff together, and it turned brown, and then we found these zinc tablets, and we dropped those in there, and it started bubbling, and it dissolved the zinc. I have no idea what it was. And the teacher, he walks by, and he's like, "Oh, you're doing a great job doing it. Yeah, that's following the plan there. Oh, my gosh, what have you guys done? Quickly, get out of the room." And he evacuated the room, and we opened all the windows. And me and my lab partner had to take this stuff. There were woods behind the school. And we took it back into the woods and poured it on the ground. So who knows, that's probably a super fun site now because of us, He wouldn't even let us bring the jar back inside the beaker. He made us throw that in the garbage because who knows what strange thing we had done. Yeah. But I can talk about Jesus Christ. I dare say you can talk about Jesus Christ. Because whenever I talk about Christ, what do I tell? What Christ has done for me. Okay, what I've discovered in my evangelism, the very first time I went out on my very first evangelism call, I was petrified. I was petrified. Because I didn't know what I was doing. I'd never done it before, ever. And here I went with this guy. We're going to go and make calls. We're going to share the good word of Jesus Christ. And I went, what was my motivation? Guilt. Because the preacher had got up in the pulpit and said, if you're a good Christian, you'll be telling people about Jesus. If you really love Jesus Christ, you'll go share his word. Well, I love Jesus. I want to be a good Christian, so yes, I will go. And I went, and I would have rather gone to the dentist and had my teeth pulled, you know. Oh. And this guy that I'm with, he's like a pro, you know. He has no problem with it whatsoever. So I had an anchor man with me. And we're pulling up to the house. We're in the driveway about to get up, and he looks at me and he says, okay, Glenn, you lead the way. But, yeah, you're going to talk. No, I'm not. No. And I'm just going to stay in the car. You go in. And he, no, you're getting out of the car. You're going up. You're knocking on the door. You say, I'll be with you. So I did. I got up and I knocked on the door, and the guy invited us inside, and we sat down. We had a really nice meeting. We talked about Jesus, and the whole time I am sweating buckets. I am sweating so much they have to call an ambulance to rehydrate me so I can get back to the... Well, no, they didn't. It wasn't that bad, but I mean, my shirt is soaking wet. I mean, the guy probably thought I had some weird disease because I'm stammering, I'm stuttering, but I talked about who? Jesus Christ and what he had done for me. He had died for my salvation, rose to defeat the grave, promises me everlasting life. Boom, I'm done. Oh, thank you, Lord. Let me get out of here. Bye. I don't ever want to see you again. Don't come to my church because you'll think I'm the idiot that stammered and sweated all over your sofa. But what I noticed was this. I didn't give up. I went back. We would meet every Thursday, and next Thursday I went back again. I made myself go back. I didn't want to, but I made myself go back. And we went and made another call, and you know what? It was a little bit easier. And the next Thursday I went back and did it again, and by this time I had like a little spiel. I used Arnold Schwarzenegger, and how did he get so strong? He exercised his muscles. What about our muscles of faith? And it just so happened the guy that I was talking to was what? An Arnold Schwarzenegger fan. Yes, and so we bonded, we resonated. And then the next week I'm thinking, this ain't so bad, okay? We have to get out of our comfort zone. Getting out of our comfort zone is uncomfortable. But unless we do it, we'll never do what? We'll never share the word. Because we'll always be afraid. We'll always be afraid. We'll always be afraid. Hold on just a second, Trudy. Here's another thing, too. And then I'm going to call on Trudy, then I'm going to let Ron speak because Ron has a... Is that okay? I know you've prepared. I'm going to run out of time. Ron, what you have to realize is that we have them here. Before class, in fact, this week, Ron talked to me a couple of times. Just give me a short introduction, Pastor, and I've got it. That was half hour ago. Yeah. Trudy, you've got a question. Can I respond? Okay. I certainly respect what you're saying. I definitely respect what you're saying. And I think one of the struggles that we have, not to disagree with you, but I try to make a point of telling people, have a blessed day. At Christmas, I say, blessed Christmas. Because I want to emphasize that the Christmas season isn't just about buying gifts. It's about God's gift. And if I say Merry Christmas, well, that puts into our mind, what, a glass of eggnog and Christmas cheer and Christmas tree. If I say Blessed Christmas, people might stop and pause. I even painted it on the back of my car one year. The old Bluesmobile, I painted Blessed Christmas on the back and rode around. Jesus is the reason for the season. We have to realize that the Word of God has power regardless of who says it. Remember in the Gospels when the disciples came to Jesus and said, someone is preaching in your name and we do not know them? Should we stop them? And Jesus said, go ye and tell him to shut his mouth. No, he said, let him preach. Let him, great. He doesn't, we're not buds. We don't hang out together every day. But apparently, something I said and taught resonated with this individual, and he's talking about me. Don't know who he is, don't know where he's from, but the message has power because it is what? Based on God. That's the reason I'm so incredibly opposed to people using God's name in vain, or God's name as a byword, because the name of God has power. Back in Martin Luther's day, one of the struggles the congregations had was apparently there were a lot of priests and pastors who really didn't believe in God. Believe it or not, there were pastors and priests. It was just a way to make a living, a way to make some dollars, and you weren't out plowing behind a mule in the mud. And so the parishioners and they would even say it in Latin, that when you bless the elements in Latin, what they would say, wine you are, wine you will remain, bread you are, bread you will remain. And the people heard it in Latin and said, well, it sounded like Latin, so he did his thing. And finally they called Luther, contacted him, are we receiving the body and blood of Christ? And Luther replied by saying, yes, because you came forward believing. Power is in the Word, okay? Power is in the Word. When I consecrate the elements on a given communion Sunday, you don't have to be concerned that I'm holy enough to do it. You don't have to concern yourself by saying, well, did Pastor sin this week and God doesn't listen to him, No. Whoever speaks the Word, the power to consecrate the elements is found not in the person, but in the Word itself. All right? Anybody, Luther was a big proponent of that. Anybody can consecrate the elements. Why do I do it then? Because I spent the big bucks on this thing right here. Actually, that one's homemade. If you buy a brand new one, it's $1.35. A Clorox bleach bottle, man, and a sharp knife does the very same thing, Yeah. It's not because I wear this, it's because I have the call. And so the church says, what does Paul say in 1 Corinthians chapter 14? Let all things be done decently and in good order. And if we had over 200 people in church today. Wasn't that great? Wasn't that great? I loved it. I was singing, wow, fantastic, beautiful, beautiful. And we could have 200 people come up and consecrate the elements. That would be chaos. That would be Christian chaos. And so what the church has agreed to do, okay, we're going to designate one guy to do it for everybody. That's the call. That's the call. That's the reason it's called the office. That's the reason it's called the office of the public ministry. Because everything I do I do in the name of the church. It's not the Reverend Fischer and his power. It's Forest Oaks Lutheran. So when I preach, that's the proclamation of the church. When I baptize, the church is baptizing that baby. Now, it would be real cool, real touchy-feely if we all lined up and dipped water over the head of the one being baptized. But that would take a long time, and the floor would get really wet, all right? And we'd run out of water, the whole 9 yards. I do it in the name of the church. I consecrate the elements in the name of the church. I forgive sins in the name of the church. I did a funeral on Friday in the name of the church, okay? All the way down the line. All the way down the line. Now, the question is, you take my parents' congregation, Zion Lutheran, the oldest Missouri Synod Lutheran church in the state of Florida, founded by my grandfather, the Reverend Edward Fischer. That's who I'm named after, by the way, Glen Edward Fischer. So, wow. Right now they got about 40 members. They're struggling. Their pastor retired August of last year. And guess what they asked me? Would you come over and cut our grass so that it looks nice when the new pastor comes? No, they didn't ask me that. They have asked me that in the past, though. They put me on their call list, right? You know, me and 8 other fellows. And I quite frankly don't want the call. I don't want the call. Jesus said a prophet is not without honor except in his own hometown. Of the 40 members, 20 of them, their last name is Fischer. So, wow. You know, yeah. Can you imagine me preaching a sermon like I did today to my mom? You know, go out there and do mission work. I diapered you. I powdered your bottom. You know, that kind of thing. But what are they looking for? A pastor who will come and make the church grow. That will not work. That will not work. That will not work. Can't think of any work that will not. All right, it will not work. I've asked this question before. I'm gonna do a litmus test. Can a pastor ruin a church? No, 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 and no. No, 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 and no. No. Everybody, oh yeah, you can ruin a church. Because inevitably what? Nobody, who was it? John F. Kennedy said this: success has many fathers, failure is an orphan. Okay, if Pastor X goes over to Zion Lutheran Church and in 3 years Zion Lutheran Church closes its doors and ceases to exist, everyone will blame the pastor. They will. If we'd have had a better pastor, our church would have grown. No. Or you take a big, booming 500-member congregation and a new pastor comes. And over the course of time, membership drops to 150. Who gets the blame? The pastor does. Conversely, if the church grows from 100 to 500, who gets the blame for that? The pastor does. Sure he does. Sure he does. Look at what I did. When I came here, this church was about to close, but after my fine preaching, teaching, evangelism, I did this, that, and the other, and look at us today. Well, I can't think of a word to say that's not. That's polite. No, I'll just say no. It's not the way that works. The members of the church either make or break the church. You take a church that grows. The congregation has embraced the mission of Jesus Christ, I guarantee you. When I was in California, I have shared this so many times, I'm sure people are tired of me talking about it, but I'm going to give you the brief version. I spent a year in California, a very exciting year in the Mojave Desert, in the town of Lancaster. Anybody ever heard of Lancaster, California, right next to Palmdale, on the Sierra Highway? 80 miles away from Los Angeles, but still in Los Angeles County. And there was a little bitty town called Quartz Hill. You heard of Quartz Hill? You could fit Quartz Hill in this sanctuary. It was a little tiny town. And the reason it was called Quartz Hill is because there was a big hill in the middle of the town, and it was made out of quartz. Yeah, it was out there in the middle of the desert, And we came up with the brainiac idea of doing in-home Bible studies. And we started 10 of them, cottage Bible studies. Now, this was in 1988. And we started 10 home Bible studies. And I'll never forget, because I'm brand new out there. I mean, brand new. We start this. And my job was to do what? Rotate amongst the 10. I would go to this one night, I'd go to this one night. But the people led the Bible class, taught the Bible class, dealt with it. I would just rove throughout these Bible classes. And the first time there was a group of people who came to our church from the little town of Forts Hill. And their Bible class was on Thursday night, and they lived way out in the desert, right? And so Thursday night, I jump in my car, I head out there, I've got all my stuff, And I show up at the house, and I knock on the door. Now, I'm brand new, so I really don't know people very well. Knock on the door, they open the door, and I just walk in, and, hey, how y'all doing? And it's just this man in this place, And I sit down, I go in the living room. Wow, this beautiful home. I really like the way you've got this set up. It's really nice. And the guy, he still has a tie on, just comes from work. And they're cooking dinner in the kitchen. And I kind of think, well, that must be like some hors d'oeuvres or something. And I sit down on the couch, and the guy, he sits down with me, and we start chatting. And we're talking away. He says, can I get you something to drink? Yeah, I've got coffee. I'll take a coffee. And he calls his wife, make him a cup of coffee. She brings coffee, we chat some more, and finally I look at my watch, and it's like 20 after 7, and Bible class is supposed to start at 7. I look at my watch and I said, so when's everybody going to get here? Who? Everybody for the Bible class. What Bible class? Aren't you George and Sharon Hartwig? No, they live about a mile down the road. Yeah. I had turned the wrong way, had gone to this guy's house, and had sat down. And the killer about it was they were so friendly about it. They just this total stranger walks in and starts visiting with them, and they got me coffee. They invited me to stay for supper, and I'm like, oh no, I got to go to Bible class, And now, did I invite them to our Bible study? Yes, I did, Did they come? No, they didn't, because they probably thought their pastor is nuts. Go down, I find the house, I go in, everybody's waiting because it's my night to be there and my night to lead. And I told them, and they all thought it was funny, and great. We had 10 people. One night we're there, having Bible class, and we said, you know what? What if we started a church here in Forts Hill? What would it take to start a church? We got 10 people. We have no money. We have nothing. I don't know. Let's give it a try. In order to start a church, we have to do what? We got to find out. We don't have any money, and we got no way to get money. But we've got a guy in our group who runs a real estate agency whose back room is empty. And he says, you can have my back room for as long as you need it. And his back room was about as big as our conference room. Okay, so we start Resurrection Lutheran Church in Forts Hill, 10 people. And we met there every Sunday, and we would have worship. And in a couple of months, we couldn't use the room anymore because it's standing room only. And so we rented a building. Wow. And the building was maybe, 20 by 40. And the final Sunday, we were there for about 3 months. And the final Sunday we were there, my pulpit was a music stand. And I was all the way up against the back wall, or the front wall like this. And there were people sitting right in front of me. That's how packed it was. We jammed as many people in there as we could. Then we rented the public park building. They had a community center at the public park, which actually kind of looked like a church. And within about 3 months, we outgrew that. And then we got the really crazy idea. There was a Baptist church in town that had gone out of business. And their building was for sale. And we bought it. Can you imagine that? We bought it, we chartered, we became Resurrection Lutheran Church, Forts Hill, Florida, with a starting membership of 202. How did that happen? I'm going to be real honest, because I was pastor of Grace Lutheran Church Lancaster, which had a school, a daycare, had a radio program, had a mommy's day out, the whole 9 yards. I was busy. We had 1,100 members. So during the week, I'm doing what? I'm preaching on the radio, I'm leading Bible class in the school, I'm doing funerals, I'm doing hospital calls, my communion list, my shut-in communion list. I had 43 people I had to visit every month. I was a busy man. I was young in those days. Yes. What did I do at Quartz Hill during the week? Nothing. I'm going to be real honest about it. I didn't do anything. I showed up on Sunday, I preached, I had Bible class, and I went back to Grace Lancaster. The people embraced the mission, and they would go to work and they would tell their friends, hey, we're starting this new little mission church. Why don't you come check us out? And they would bring a friend that next Sunday. And sometimes the friend would stay and join and get involved, and they would invite a friend. And sometimes the friend would come, would listen, would sing, and say, I don't like this. And they would go elsewhere. I said, okay, that's okay. We're not going to get everybody. But within 1 year, I'm not kidding, from November of 1988 to November of 1989, we grew from 10 meeting in somebody's living room out in the middle of the desert to 202 people who now bought a building with Sunday school rooms and had programs, the whole 9 yards. I didn't do that. Everybody, wow, boy, you did a great job. Even at the end of the year, wow, and you got the standing ovation, the whole 9 yards. I didn't do this, okay? I didn't do this. You guys did. I did not. I didn't even come up with the idea. I was the idiot who got lost and went to the wrong house. It was the other people who said, golly, why don't we have a church? Well, thank you, Bob. Thank you very much. But it is the gospel that has the power. It is the gospel that has the power. Well, I'm sorry, you have to say that. I would be wrong. No, I was there. I mean, I know what I did. I was busy every day, and the killer about it too, because I had to go to Grace Lutheran because I'm serving there. And I told them, I said, we want to start this church. Can we do that? Because I'm really your pastor. And they're like, oh yeah, fine, go ahead. So what I would do is I would have early church at Grace. Then I would get in my car and I would fly out to Resurrection and I would jump out of the car and go in and have worship. And believe it or not, a really brief Bible class. And then I'd get in my car and I'd fly back to Grace Lutheran and do late service there. And the very first Sunday I did that, I didn't take my robes off. And because I thought, I'll save time. I won't have to take them off and put them in a bag and then get them out there and take them out of the bag and put them on. So I'm going down the road in the robe that I wear here on Sunday, the very same robe. Got my robe, my stole, my cross. And what I forgot is I had one of these things hooked up, one of these sound system things hooked up. And it was on. And so I'm going down the road, and they said, the people at Lancaster, Grace Lancaster, said you could hear me for about 2 miles down the road. Because I get in the truck, I had this old Chevy truck, and I crank it up, and I'm going through, okay, when I get there, I've got to meet so-and-so and so-and-so, and golly, I really messed up that sermon. Okay, let me rehearse it again. And they said they could hear me clear as a bell. They guessed for about a mile, and then I started breaking up, And the whole time, okay, now when I get there, I've got to do this, 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 and this. And then it started. I didn't realize that thing would pick up that far, so I quit doing that after that. I would actually take my robe off because I thought, what if I get pulled over? They might think I'm going to a Klan rally or something. That would be bad. So my point is what? My point is the people embraced the mission. The people embraced the mission and got involved. And they did whatever they could do. Whatever their particular gift was, they did. They did. All right? Now, can that very same thing happen here? Because here's the dilemma. I'm going to let you go in just a few minutes, and then next week we're looking forward to Ron. Thank you, Ron, for being so patient with me and so kind and calm. Ron prepared all week, and I stole his thunder today. Who do we want at our church? Thank you, Joni. Because old people aren't in need of salvation, are they? Old people don't sin. They're too old to sin. They might want to sin, but they can't sin anymore. So we need the young sinners because they're the ones who can still not only think about it, but do it. And we need to rescue them and make them old like us, right? That's what a lot of people, not everybody, but that's what a lot of people say. We need young people. No. We need sinners. That's who we need. We need people who don't know Christ. Don't know. That's who we need to look for. Because this mentality, I'm not saying it's wrong, but we can't limit it, right? Because inevitably, if we box that, there's the box again, and say we need young people, and then we look at our 70, 80, 90-year-old neighbor, well, we don't want them. We've already got 200 of them. We look at the guy we're playing golf with who's 75 and kind of, gosh, I need a new hip. Well, we don't want him. We got a bunch of him. My gosh, if we had a metal detector, we'd set it off all day long. You know, we need young people with little kids. Do we need young people with little kids? Yes, we do. We want them. But primarily, we need sinners in search of salvation. We need people who don't know Jesus Christ, regardless of their age. You know, if you look at the people that Christ ministered to, did he minister to a lot of young people? Sure he did. Did he minister to the elderly as well? You better believe he did. You better believe he did. Nowhere in the Bible does it say, and while Christ walked along the way, he saw Gene Blackburn with his oxygen tube and said, "Good luck." And on he went. No. If Christ were walking by Gene today, he would say, "Do you want to be healed? You're healed. You know, let me get rid, although you had the bullet removed. Yeah, the bullet's already gone. Yeah. Christ reached out to everyone. Maybe, now this is radical. Okay, this is thinking outside the box. What if we had some kind of an elderly ministry? You know, because we talk about all the things we can do here. Well, we'll have movie night, which I'm in favor of because I like movies. We'll put a basketball hoop up there. Well, that's cool. I'm not very athletic, but I think kids should have a place to come that is welcoming and warm and inviting, and we get to know them. You know, that's kind of a planned meet and greet. You know, Mommy's Day Out, cool. I think that's a great idea because that's a need in our community to provide safe children care, child care. What do we do to reach out to people that are 60, 65, 70, and older? What group, what committee, what organization reaches out to the elderly? Because the last time I looked around Spring Hill, it seems to me that Spring Hill is still filled with retired people. Yeah. And we're basically turning our backs on these people. Wow, you know, what a radical concept. If maybe in our movie night, car fixing Saturday, basketball hoop in the parking lot, we also said, you know, what if we formed a group for grieving widows or grieving widowers? Okay? What if we formed a group that supported people who live all by themselves? Do you know anybody who lives alone? I do. Yeah. Do you know people that live alone that rarely come out of their house? I do. Yeah. What if we did some kind of a group that ministered to these people and said, you know what, come and have some pie with us. We're not going to beat you up with the Bible. We just want to eat pie with you. Apple, pumpkin, lemon meringue, whatever you want to have, we're going to have. Pie day for the old people. We'll even supply the teeth, you know? Yeah. That's what I'm talking about. Mission and ministry to who? People that need mission and ministry. That's where I'm going with this. That's what I'm talking about. One more quickie. Since we started at 10 after, it's like 12 after right now, and I'm going to leave you with this, okay? Alma was talking about training in the way she was educated. Bingo. To use a Catholic word. Yeah. I don't know, did the Catholics invent the word bingo or did they steal it? Because I grew up in a very non-Catholic environment, and yet we all sang the song about the dog. B-I-N-G-O, B-I-N. Remember that one? Yeah, B-I-N, and bingo was his name. Oh, evangelism. Witnessing. Okay. Training. 5 points. Who wants to be a witness for Christ? Raise your hand. Okay, I had to wait on it a little bit, but there it is. Very good. Very good. I'm proud of you. Therefore, what we're going to do next Sunday, rather than have Bible class, we're going to do like Jesus and team up 2 by 2. We're going to go out into the Forest Oaks community here. We're going to knock on doors. Gary is working even now on printing up tracts. We're going to hand out the tracts. Before we go out, we're going to memorize a little 5-minute presentation of the gospel. We're going to do this. How many of you want to do that with me and Gary? You don't have to sit in class. Thank you, Susan. Kind of reluctantly. Thank you, the rest of you, for your brutal honesty. No way, no how, because what will happen? We don't know. We might get cussed at. The dog might bite us. We might get squirted with the garden hose. I don't know. And yet, any book you grab on evangelism, 90% of them talk about door-to-door witnessing. Door-to-door witnessing is one of the most ineffective ways to witness. Because, we talked earlier about religion being public and private. Okay, if I see you in public and I don't know you, and you believe that religion is a private thing, and I walk up to you and I say, hi, I don't know you, but do you believe in Jesus Christ? Do you believe in Jesus Christ? Yes. Do you believe in Jesus Christ as your personal Lord and Savior? Do you see him as salvific, or do you see him as a historical figure? Of course I do.
If I'm playing the part here, well, I just see him as a historical figure.
Why would you say that? You're the former president of our congregation. No wonder things are going to pot. Playing a part. Yeah, he's playing a part. I wanted you, and very good, thank you. I know I caught you off guard, but you see what I mean? We catch people off guard. You knock on the door and there's a housewife cooking dinner and her arms are up, to here, to her elbows in the kitchen sink, and suddenly you want to talk to me about eternity and salvation? That's not something you can do in 5 minutes. You can't. You just simply can't. It's kind of like Trudy was saying. Now me, once again, that's just because of who I am. But when somebody like a Jehovah's Witness knocks on my door, oh, happy day. Oh, yeah. Oh, happy day. Please come in, sit down. And Jocelyn tells me, and Mormon's the same way. Oh, boy. What a treat. What a treat. And Jocelyn tells me I'm the only one she knows that the Mormons and the Jehovah's Witnesses are looking at there after 3 hours. We got to go. No, you don't. No, please stay. I'm enjoying this. Let's keep going. And what do I do every time? I offer them coffee and a Coke and a beer, because they can't have any of the above. And I'll even occasionally, I'll say, come on outside, I got to have a cigarette, This time, I'm really loving it. Let's go have a smoke. So they think, oh my gosh, a sinner, we've caught him, I'll never forget this. When I lived in Alabama, remember the Mormon TV commercials that always showed the happy family in given situations, and it was all heartwarming and warm and fuzzy. And then at the end, we're going to give you a free Bible. Call if you would like a free Bible. What do I do? Hello, I want your free Bible. Yes, you want to bring it to my house? That sounds great. Here they come. Here they come. And we're sitting there in the living room in my little house. Oh yeah, false representation. Because I had this old beat-up Ford pickup truck out in the yard, and it was all loaded with scrap metal, and junk hanging off of it. And so they did not suspect that I was a pastor. And they came to my house one evening, and of course I offered, you want some coffee? No, can't have coffee. You want some Coca-Cola? No Coca-Cola. Want a beer? How about a cold beer? No, can't have a beer. You mind if I smoke? No, go right ahead. We're chatting, and we get into the doctrine of the Trinity. Right? We're talking about the Trinity, and I'm reading Scripture, they're reading their Scripture. We're going back and forth. And finally one of them they never did ask me which church I went to, or if I went to church. Middle of the conversation, and it's always two guys, and so me and guy A, we're bam, 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 like a tennis match. Bam, bam, bam. And finally, guy B, he pipes up, he goes, "Do you go to church?" And I said, "Yes, I sure do. I go to the Lutheran church." "That's a false church." "Really? Why do you think that's a false church?" He said, "Because they pay their preacher money. They pay their preacher a salary, and we don't do that. That's the mark of a false church if a preacher gets a paycheck." He said, "Look," he said, I'm not judging your house. I'm not judging what you drive. But he said, you got to admit your house is kind of humble. Your car is kind of run down. Do you think a preacher would live in a house like this? You think a preacher would drive a truck like that?" And I had just taken a big mouthful of coffee. It was all I could do not to spit it out. And he was driving it home, you know. Do you think they would drive it? Do you? And I finally choked the coffee down. And Jocelyn had gone to the back bedroom where she was laughing. Finally choked my coffee down. I said, "I reckon not," you know. We chatted a little more. They decided it was time to leave. They backed out, and you could see they paused as their car swung out in the night, and their headlights hit my mailbox that said, "Reverend Glen E. Fischer." And I invited them back, you know, when we said, "Well, come back next week. I really want to talk to you." They never came back again. Never saw them again. Never saw them again. The likelihood of that happening with us when we knock on a door and someone invites us in, you know who will invite us in? Jehovah's Witnesses. I guarantee you. I've done a lot of door knocking in my day, and the ones that are so friendly and nice, they'll invite you in, they'll listen to your spiel, and then what do? Then they push their stuff, yeah, and then it gets into this debate, you know. Witnessing, we think, okay, that's witnessing, and I have to be trained for that because I have to know the 5-point presentation. If I don't know it, I'm an ineffective witness. How many of us are trained automotive engineers? Raise your hand if you went to college and you are a mechanical engineer who specializes in internal combustion engines. You would have been. That's like horseshoes and hand grenades, Gene. It's not close enough. And yet, I dare say that if I were to share with you a problem with my car, somebody here will walk up to me and say, "Have you tried Lucas oil? Have you tried adding seafoam to the gas tank? You know what I think you need to do is drain your transmission fluid and put a new filter in it and then refill it with fresh fluid." We're what? We are experienced and opinionated. "Well, Pastor, if you'd bought a Ford, you wouldn't be having this problem right now. You'd be driving a Chevrolet, you'd be going right down the road. See the USA in your Chevrolet. You know, go Chrysler, Dodge, Plymouth," although they don't make Plymouths anymore. We have opinion based on what? Experience. Because somebody's going to come to me and say, "You know, I had the very same problem and this is what fixed it. This product, this procedure is what fixed it." And yet we are woefully uneducated in how these things work. And at the same time, bold to share our opinion. Why can't we translate that here? How many of you can read Koine Greek? I can. That's the language of the New Testament. That's what the New Testament is written. How many of you can read Hebrew? Not well. Not very well at all. I didn't enjoy Hebrew at all. No. Pastor Lair is great with Hebrew. I am not. Okay. That, by the way, if you look at the pulpit, or not the pulpit, but the lectern, see on the front, that's Hebrew. It's Ruach. Ruach, which means listen. Did you know that? You know how I know that? Pastor Lair told me. Yeah. Yeah, because I walk in and I said, "That's Hebrew. What does he say?" "Oh, Ruach. Ruach. Didn't you study your Hebrew?" "Yeah, I did, unfortunately, and I just didn't stick in my head." For some reason, we think we have to be an expert to do this when all we have to do is what? Share what we know. Share our experience. What has Christ done for you? Have you ever been in the hospital and you prayed and you got better? You ever looked at your bank book and you're like on the 15th to 17th and there ain't no more money coming in and you got a lot of bills coming in? Yeah. And God, I don't know how, I got a family to feed, God. I mean, I'm not wanting to go to the movies and have a big time. I got kids. And somehow, some way, something happened that answered that question. You ever had a close call? I did last night, driving a car that was pouring gasoline out from underneath it right onto the tailpipe. Yeah. And then I'm looking at it with a flashlight in the dark with a lit cigarette in my mouth. Here I am today. Would you say that's the protection and providence of God? I sure would. Okay? We all have that story. What we need to do is be bold to share that story. You want to know how the church in California exploded? I had 10 people that were really excited about their story about Jesus Christ. In 3 months, still there. 3 months, I had 20 people. 3 months after that, I had 100 people. 6 months after that, I had 200 people that were excited to share the message of Christ. We're way over time, but I really want to throw this into this. This is kind of the downer. We chartered. We had our worship. We had our 202. And what do we need to do? Because I'm over at Grace Lutheran in Lancaster. I'm just kind of the unofficial guy. And they want their own fella. And they did. They called a fella. First pastor. And I even went to the installation service and laid hands on him and all of that. Me and a bunch of other pastors. And the very first thing he did was what? If we want to be a witnessing church, we need to do Kennedy Dialogue Evangelism, and we need to train. We need to form an evangelism committee. We need to follow a 5-point program and knock on doors. You know how many people are at Resurrection Lutheran Church in Quartz Hill today? 200. Yeah, 200. Because he took away what? The flame, the fire, the enthusiasm. Leave this to me, he said. What do you mean? Just leave it alone. Let it run. It's working. Don't, keep your fingers off of it. Just let it happen. Gummed up the works, got into this, and it stalled. What would it take to get not this, jihad, not this, but this going here? That's my homework for you guys. What would it take to recreate that at Forest Oaks? What would it take to get us excited about that here at Forest Oaks Lutheran Church? That's your homework. That's your percolating point for the week. Next week we are going to hear from Ron. If I get up and talk longer than 2 minutes, here's what I want everybody to do. Bring a sponge, throw it at me if I talk longer than 2 minutes, because Ron has a very, very good message to share to us. Okay, let me get Alma and then Joni, and then we're taking off. Definitely they are, and that is a powerful word. That is a powerful word. For whatever reason, rather than staying in a comfortable bed, staying in your jammies and watching the morning news and having a big breakfast, got up and got dressed and got out and got in the car. I mean, look at the weather we've had lately. Last week it was London fog. We came through. It would have been so easy to look out on the road. You came and you witnessed. Okay, you blew it. Your weekly witness is powerful. Yeah, just like our prayer at Hooters. Now, good or bad, I just got a big kick out of it when the girl came out with a And Joni. But that still doesn't take away the power of your blessing. Still has power. Rudy, and then that's it because we're at 12:30. That was the third, yeah. And then Susan, look. Kind of like if you've seen the movie The Quiet Man with John Wayne, and you know Ireland, and they greet everybody. God bless all in this house. I think that's really cool. Yeah. Very good. All righty. Thank you all for your patience. Thank you all for